you see where Juneau got 7 feet of snow? And at that point, you're not really shoveling, you're negotiating. That's different. Alaska's not for beginners. It's not for me and you. I never lived in Alaska, but I do have some friends of mine that worked over there, and they will tell you it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. All of them will go right back when given the opportunity. To me, that's insanity because I think you're fighting nature and nature's winning, but their answer is no. It's worth every little hardship you go through to be in a place that's so beautiful. I get that. However, as a meteorologist, when you tell me that 82 inches of snow in 1 month is possible, that's almost 7 feet. That's not weather. That's a personality test. I'm not going to win that game, I promise you. Wow, that's a lot of snow. So snow load, a lot of times we measure that by how much by how the poundage is distributed. So the snow load hit 45 pounds per square foot, which coincidentally is exactly the weight of regret. Yeah, boats in the harbor didn't sink, they just gave up. It is tough. Look it up. There are pictures that you can see online where boats are just under and nothing is left sticking up by the mast. One of them, that's all you could see, was just the mast, which is nautical for, yep, she gone. Said 8 boats sank. 3 dozen were saved, which is Alaskan for delayed. That's what it means. They said boats sank sideways, stern first, bow up, every option except floating. Think about all that snow. Boats aren't designed to carry that kind of weight. That's not really the physics doesn't really help. It's not aiding in that situation. I was looking at some of the numbers, and basically we're closing down everything in those areas. And because of the way this is falling, they don't typically deal with this type of wet snow. So the snow is really wet and it's really, really heavy. And it really hasn't stopped. And this time of year, if you've ever lived in that type of climate, and I haven't, but I've lived in Michigan, and what I know is coming from South Carolina as a child and living in other places as a meteorologist, when I got to Michigan, what I noticed was the temperatures will drop below freezing earlier, obviously, than in the South. But on top of that, they often won't recover for months and months and months at the time, which was completely foreign to me, but it's not foreign to people who live there to see the temperature drop below freezing in, let's say, early December, and you don't break it again until sometimes late March or even sometimes into April. I remember the first time we broke freezing when I was in Saginaw after one of those several month runs. The parking lots at the end of those runs, they push that snow into piles, and those piles will be 10, 15 feet high, and they don't go anywhere because the temps don't break freezing. And then it gets ugly. Snow's real pretty when it's white, and that beautiful sound that it makes, it's wonderful. Once we start running on it, driving on it, playing football on it, and all the things we do on it, then we push it and stack it, it gets really ugly. And you don't get the sun much over in those areas anyway. So it really creates this sort of dark and ominous feeling all the time. It's kind of like you're living in this weird sort of dungeon. In Alaska, the harbor master was saying all 4 harbors have sinkers. It's not really a quote. It sounds more like a country song lyric, though, right? I mean, I can't imagine looking up in my boat. I mean, you got to call State Farm and be like, yeah, so the boat? But by now, your agent's already like, yeah, I know, I lost 2 yesterday. I'll get with you. I mean, they know what to do now, but still, the thing about snow is it doesn't respect your $200,000 boat price tag. And that's just disrespectful. It's not right. Now, I don't know if you pay attention to the weather up there. I typically don't, but this was an interesting story to me because of the vivid photographs they included, with boats half in the water, half out, snow just covering everything. Here's the kicker. Over the next couple of days, 2 more feet are on the way. I said feet. 2 feet of snow on top of the additional 7 feet of snow are on the way. Now I realize that's awful math, but you get what I'm saying. Give or take a little, it's a mess. Alaskans pride themselves on surviving the harshness of their winters and the territory, and I respect that. But this one has crossed into administrative shutdown territory. That's different altogether. And to say that on your end is a big deal. I learned when I lived in Michigan, this will come as no shocker, but in the state of South Carolina, when you go to high school, I remember as a freshman being let out of school because the temperatures were going to reach 0 degrees. Yeah, they let us out of school. They claimed because they wanted us to feel what 0 degrees. This is what they told us. We want you to feel what 0 degrees feels like on your skin. Did you send me outside to get frostbite? Yeah, and what you didn't say was that a lot of our schools, we were in classes in trailers, and you didn't have that kind of heat. You didn't have enough heat when we had the 4 or 5 days below 50. They were like 47. We were dying, and you can't start a fire in a small trailer. Trust me, we would have. If you could have, we would have. So what you really told us was we don't have the ability to keep you warm. So then they put us on the buses, and you know buses are always warm, and they sent us home. Do you see the lunacy of what I'm saying? 0 degrees, they sent us home. When I got to Michigan, I was running a group of radio stations, and when I got there, I remember the first day the snow hit. And I mean, it hit. And it's white out at this point, so it's really blowing. So I walk up to the front. Nobody at management is still here. I walk up to the front and I say, hey, listen, we need to figure out what we're going to do about this snow plan because we're going to have to get people home. And it's snowing. We're now over 3 inches in the parking lot, and it's been just a few minutes. So what I want to do is I want to start covering traffic. And the lady stopped me at the front, and she said, but this is a Tuesday here. We're going to be fine. Once you go to your office, we'll let you know when it's time to worry. It's not. It was hilarious because I realized this is normal for them. They don't care. In South Carolina, everything stops. If I mention snow, we're out of bread and milk in just a few minutes. Bilo's done. It's over. You better get beer, too, because they're going to get that next. Once we run out of bread and milk, we don't have a choice. We don't need meat. We don't need we need beer. I mean, that's a fact. That's what happens. So the whole thought of this happening right in front of me at that speed and the wind and the white, and you know me, I'm thinking there's no way I'm getting home. You can forget it. I may live here for 3-4 months. But you just kind of learn to do it. I was in a Toyota Celica. Let me tell you what a Toyota Celica is not made for. Snow. It sure isn't. I woke up one morning. I was going to go to work. Had a buddy of mine with a Jeep, and he was like, I can come pick you up. And I said, boy, please, there ain't that much snow. Well, yeah, there was. 16 inches fell in like 4 hours while I was asleep. When I woke up, I'm driving a Celica down the road, and it's interesting the way snow falls and drifts and moves. You can go through a mile of basically nothing but a little dusting on the road. The next mile you can look up, and it caught a bunch of fetch, hit the ditch just right, and now you're moving along in conditions that you can't see. Remember, it was a Celica. My bumper was like that far off the ground. So at one point, I'm doing fine. Then I hit this big snowdrift that I never even saw. Somehow it didn't push the airbag out, which was cool. But it is crazy to drive in that kind of snow. But it wasn't for them. It was just normal. So in Alaska, the city literally ran out of places to put snow. They asked permission to dump excess snow into the ocean. Alaska dumping snow into the ocean feels like fighting fire with more Alaska. Right? That's messed up. That's like a basketball cleat. So the schools closed, buildings closed, no state open. It just keeps coming. roofs collapsing like snow personally took offense to architecture. It's rough when you get to Alaska right now. I would love to be there as a meteorologist in a hotel near a fire. I'm not really big into cold. That's why I live in Arizona. It's really nice and warm here. Why am I in a jacket? Because our temperatures today are only managing the upper 50s, which no one should have to live in those conditions. 50s, not for humans. Coincidentally, do you know what the average temperature globally is? It's 59. I'm just telling you, 50s are no place to be. That's why I came to Phoenix. I didn't come to Phoenix to get Kansas City weather. It's not really what I came for. I came for it to be warm. So now I'm in a jacket. Plus, I live in a trailer the size of a toaster. It gets cold fast. I saw in Alaska that the martial arts dojo roof just caved in, which kind of feels symbolic. What they're telling us is even karate cannot defeat weather. That was pretty deep. City manager basically said, hey, listen, I'm not going to recommend that you go up on your roof. However, you should go up on your roof and get that snow off there before it caves your whole roof in. But I don't recommend it. See, that's tough. That's hard. I don't know that I'm cut out for that. But they pay you each year to live there. And as I thought about it, my buddy was telling me that, and I was like, he was telling me how much, and I was thinking, that's not enough. That's not enough to put me through that. It's not going to happen. It's not that winter's so much longer. It's that winter shows up like it's late and overcompensates, I think's what's going on. I'm glad not to be in it. I'm covering weather across the USA as part of another thing that I'm doing, and I'm really hyper-focused on Tulsa, Oklahoma. And as I do that, I realize that their weather is significantly different than what I have here in the valley. And I don't know if I miss it, but I like covering it from this distance. I learn a lot. I get to think about what will happen and not what's happening. And that's huge. My name is Bud Ford. Bud like the beer, Ford like the truck. What I did before I started doing this was I was a radio host. I did news talk. I did country. I was on a morning show that was nationally syndicated. I was on the Bud and Broadway show, which was really cool. I was the Bud portion of that. And I'm also a meteorologist, so I do television weather, and I'm in the process of finishing a master's degree in strategic communications, which is going to work out good. That's hopefully going to help me learn to talk better and communicate more strategically, whatever that means. My boss asked me the other day, he said, what are you going to do with a degree in strategic communications? And I said, well, not much now. Everything you could have done with it got AI'd out. But now I'm stuck so far along, I might as well finish paying for it, because you don't want to go to the good Lord when St. Peter asks your qualifications. You don't want to say, well, I'm halfway through a master's. Because he's going to be like, brah, you're out of time. You're not going to finish. So I'd rather go ahead and cross that finish line. I've been looking at some things that are happening locally and nationally. It's really a big deal locally. And I'm going to tell you, if I have to check my blind spot while walking, something's gone wrong. E-bikes are fun until you're playing Frogger on Memorial. Then they're no longer fun. I saw where the Tempe City Council, and Tempe, if you don't know much about the Arizona geography, Tempe is a city that carries, 180,000 people. I could be off by a few. But in there sits the ASU campus. So now all of a sudden there's sort of a different economy going on there, because a large portion of their bread and butter is doing things that the older folks don't quite understand yet. And that's okay. That's just because that's how the world works, right? It quickly goes through the schools, into the colleges, and then eventually to us, depending upon, especially if it's technology based. So in Tempe, they're trying to figure out what's going on. What can we do with e-bikes and electric transportation to keep people safe from one another? They have a subcommittee on it, and Mesa actually has a meeting about it this very week, because we are crashing e-bikes and scooters at an alarming rate. And like I said, with ASU sitting in Tempe and some other 180,000 residents, we need to get some clarification on what's okay. They're riding electric skateboards like it's normal over there at the campus. Me, I have friends of mine that bought those electric one-wheelers that you're riding on and you balance and then you take off. Every single one of them, I'm not saying one, I'm saying all of the friends in my age group that I know bought one have broken this shoulder or this shoulder, whichever one they're leading with, because at some point it's going to stop and you're not ready for that. You're just not. Now, when you're young, I get it, but when you're not, you're not. In fact, I know of a famous country star in St. Louis that was hanging out with us and left and got on his electric skateboard, and I mean the one that has the button where you're going down the road. Yeah, he got to the edge of the curbing and it didn't lift like he thought it would, and then he stopped himself with his face. Then he had to go on stage and explain all that. So the point is, these things are moving and people are getting hurt. Now, when you look at this area is a little different. We're not exactly like all other places, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But with this new committee, what they're going to do is look at local crash and injury data involving e-bikes, scooters, and the like. And they're going to look at different safety options they can use, other cities have used that are on the same size and same scale. But there's not that many. You're not really looking east. You're really more looking west, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. They're also looking to expand education for both riders and motorists as to how it plays out and how we interact. Mobility injuries are rising at an unprecedented clip. Well, that makes sense. The technology is getting here. However, if you go just for a 4-year period of 2017 to 2021, you're looking at a 127% increase. Again, the technology is evolving at that point. But now those numbers are insane, and we've passed 130 deaths 5 years ago. But hopefully nothing that drastic happens to you. But I tell you what is happening is people are getting run into and run over, and then that's causing knee injuries that you have to do. I have friends of mine, that's why I'm saying this, that you have to get rehab for and surgeries. And the person on the scooter or the e-bike is no longer there. Now you're paying for all that with time off of work, your deductibles. That's a mess, I think, with the e-bikes and scooters. I think they need their own lanes and their own rules. Right now, they're a nuisance to pedestrians and a safety problem. These toys aren't slow anymore. When they run into you at 35, 40 miles per hour, that's going to create changes for you. Your life is going to change, probably in a negative way. This is not funny. It's a situation we need to get a beat on and fix it. I was riding down the road, so I live here in Arizona, and I bought a little scooter when I got here. I call it a scooter, but the fact is it's a motorcycle. It's a 650cc and not on scooter wheels, full-size motorcycle tires. So with that, I bought it just to go back and forth to work because A, it's very economical, and B, I live 3 miles from work. So, and the weather's almost always perfect. So I'm just going to ride it. Okay, great. No big deal. One day I come out of work, helmet on. Yeah, I got that's not a law here, but I had it on. I'm doing my whole thing. And I come out of work, and there's a kid sitting over across the street, and he's waving at me. And as I pull up to where he's at, he's pointing, and he's saying, watch this. And I can see that obviously through my helmet. There's no cars coming, so we're safe. He takes off on this bicycle that's this electric bicycle, but it looks sort of like a motorcycle. It was kind of half in between. It didn't have pedals either. But he takes off on it, and he stands it up on its back wheel and rides it all the way to the red light on the back wheel. And I'll give you one more. I was keeping up with him just to see what he was doing. At one point, he was gone so fast, I had to race to catch up to him just to see what was happening. It was impressive. We talked at the red light. The kid's like 13, by the way. We talked at the red light. The light changed. He was gone so fast. Again, I'm in 6th gear before I catch this kid. These bikes are fast. They're not like when we were pedaling bicycles. It's a different world. It's a motorized vehicle pretending to be a toy, and that's not real good if you're a pedestrian on the sidewalk. Walkers need places where they can safely walk without negotiating traffic. I say that it's not comedy. In this town, I like to walk because it's sunny. It's always nice. It doesn't rain. You won't get caught in a rainstorm. If you come from South Carolina, if you come from a coastal town, especially on the East Coast, 2:45 every day, I know we're going to have a rainstorm. I get it. However, during the day, passing rain showers, I'm out walking and now I get caught in a downpour. That doesn't happen here. It's not even a threat most days. So walking is fun. Sidewalks should belong to pedestrians. If I'm walking, I should not have to dodge handlebars and apologies. That's not on me. Bicycles have separate lanes. Bicycles should be separated from sidewalks where pedestrians are. Don't we all agree on that? We've already agreed on it because most cities have bicycle lanes, so we're not even going to debate that. Speed matters. Once speed goes up, mixing traffic stops making sense. It doesn't compute any longer. We separated bikes a long time ago, and now we're going backwards. I don't understand any of that. The Mesa sidewalk situation is not safe. We have sunny skies most every day. Walkability is important here. I cannot walk in the city of Mesa without bikes riding on the sidewalk asking me to move. And I will not, because you expect me to move because you're on a bicycle, thus you're going to bully me out of the way. That's not happening. And I will point and let them know you have a bike lane. That's why we gave you that. It's called a sidewalk. Words mean things. I don't walk on the bicycle trail. You know why? Because it says bicycle trail. That means it's not for me. That means I'm probably putting myself in danger. Sidewalk indicates it should be walked on. Words mean things. Keep your bicycle in the bicycle lane. Because let me go one step further. If you hit me on the sidewalk, with your bicycle, do you have any idea what's going to happen in your life next? Well, let me tell you. First, we're going to call 911. We're going to get an accident report. And then I'm going to be talking to someone with a really long name or some weird name like Sweet something or Strawberry Lawyer Firm or something like that. And I'm going to tell them how bad my neck hurts. I'm going to go in and get a bunch of things looked at. And then we're going to start talking about my court settlement. Let me tell you how this is going to go. See, because I was on a sidewalk doing what was legal and right to me. You decided to ride your 175-pound speeding bullet, your torpedo of death into me. Do you realize that right now I can't even leave my house without peeing a little bit? I'm so nervous I become a recluse. How much is that worth, Mr. Lawyer? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, no, I can't work anymore either. That's never going to happen anymore, and I'm worth at least $4 to $5 million. I'm just losing in work time. Now, I'm willing to set out of court for probably, I don't know, $10 million right this minute. How much? Does anybody know how much my lawyer's going to get out of this? $15 million I'll settle for right this very minute. I won't think twice about that, but not one penny less. Not one penny less. And that's going to be because of you, because you didn't get on the bicycle lane that you were so nicely provided. Now, here's what parents say. This is not for actual bicyclists. They stay in their own lanes. Parents are the ones that are like, oh, no, me and my kids are not going to ride on that bicycle lane. That's too close to traffic. And you know what? They're right. They're not wrong. I ain't hating on that. That would scare the devil out of me, too. I get all that. So here's how I say we do it. Let's just think about it. Your fear should not stop me from being allowed to be a pedestrian. I have the right of way on the sidewalk. You can't be here, period. We all should agree on that. So why don't we look at a different way? Let's look at maybe, just maybe, creating you your own lanes. And I say the same thing because different vehicles have different needs. Why don't we do the same thing on the road? I don't think it's fair that an 18-wheeler that weighs in some 70, 80,000 pounds has to deal with whatever my 4Runner that weighs like 4,000 pounds is doing. That 70,000 pounds of difference, I'm faster and I create more problems for them than they likely create for me. So the answer is they're professionals and I'm in the middle of their office. That's not fair to them. They have different weight requirements. They have different speeds. They could do different speed limits if they had their own playground. Their turning radius is a problem when they wreck one in regular highways. We have to deal with it, right? And it's when they cross the whole road, everything goes bad for a while. What if you built them an entire interstate system that allowed them everything they needed? Everything worked for them. Braking distance, speed took into account their loads and their weight. There's so many things we could do if we provided them the right scenario in the right system. I mean, if we got it, probably a truck brought it. Let's make it easier for them. Designing the roads around actual use makes more sense, right? So bikes, e-bikes, scooters, cars, trucks, pedestrians, we all have different needs. We should all have different lanes. One size does not fit all in this situation. Separation is not punishment. It's safety, right? We can all coexist. We just can't do it in the same 3 feet of concrete. It's funny, I started this conversation as a young man and I finished it arguing about infrastructure. Somewhere in there, in that rant, I turned 47 in dog years. Now I feel like I'm going to need a nap. I think I have time for one more. I'm going to make this quick. I want to tell you about Pat Muckenfoos. Sometimes you just need something to smile about, and every time I do, I think about old Pat Muckenfoos. I worked with Pat in a bowling alley in the 80s. It was called Oak Brook Lanes in Summerville, South Carolina. It was back when bowling alleys used to make real food. You may or may not remember that. I hope you do, because it was a good time. Now they open bags from Costco or for Cisco or from wherever they come from, dump them into a microwave or sometimes into grease. But this was actually cutting chicken, breading chicken. This is making French fries hand cut. So it was really good food. We had grills. We had real grease that had real opinions. I mean, there was a lot going on. Pat worked in the kitchen, and her real name was Pat Muckenfoos. But I used to call her Pat Make a Mess. And I did it because every time she walked into the kitchen, I swear to you, it was like a small appliance riot had happened. It was like a bomb went off in the kitchen. We had oil splatters on the wall, fries on the floor, something was on fire for no clear reason. And the best part of the whole thing was this bowling alley that I worked in. You could see the kitchen, full view from the bowling lanes. I mean, you couldn't hide. So now you're out here trying to bowl, get your perfect 4-3 entry angle, make sure your follow through is good and your foot's in the right spot. Meanwhile, behind you, it looks like the Food Network is filming an episode of What Went Wrong. It's a mess back there. Now, here's the thing. This is what I love about Pat. Pat was 60 years old. And back then, 60 doesn't mean what it means today. In the 80s, 60 was ancient. If you were over 30 in the 80s, society was like, all right, wrap it up, Gandalf. I mean, it was rough by the 30s. But Pat was awesome because Pat did not know how a 60-year-old woman was supposed to act. And I always thought that was funny. Let me give you a for instance. I worked with Pat for a long time. We might have, way back then, we might have had a drink or two back in the day. And then Pat would leave work at 2 a.m.-ish or so when we got done, drive home. And then she would mow her lawn. Yeah, she mowed her lawn at 2 a.m. She used her car headlights to light the grass because she wanted it even. That's Pat. No porch light, no floodlight, just an Oldsmobile idling in the parking lot screaming, "Come on, Pat, let's finish strong." Can you imagine being Pat's neighbor at 2 o'clock in the morning, hearing the lawnmower crank up? And in 1988 or so, they didn't crank up like they do right now. They crank up, you could hear them a block away because they had parts that didn't fit them on them. We had different mufflers. We had all kinds of stuff that we created because we just had to keep them running. What I loved about Pat is she did not exhibit senior behavior. She was more like probation energy. She always made me happy. Now, I didn't know much else about Pat. We worked together a whole lot, but outside of work, we didn't have much reason to interact. She was 60 and I was like 22. I was young. So it just didn't make sense. But I had this in my mind. You ever do that? You ever form something in your mind about another coworker? You're like, here's how they live their life. I always felt like Pat Make a Mess would smoke unfiltered cigarettes on her own time while wearing an oven mitt. She reminded me of the lady that had exactly one fork and she washed it once a week, what if it needed it or not. And when it come time to sleep, she referred to it as whenever the Lord intervenes was sleep time. She was a wonderful lady. Now, I don't know that any of that's true. I'm just saying that's what I thought. She was aggressively unconcerned with the norm, though, I'll tell you that. And the reason I've been thinking about Pat is a friend of mine was telling me that she took on a roommate. She said, dishes grow in their own ecosystem if I don't do something. She said, there's stuff on every counter everywhere. Underneath the seat cushion she was cleaning the other day, underneath the seat cushions, she found another bag of chips. I mean, I'm kidding, but she found a lot. I mean, just a full, she showed me pictures. It was disgusting. There was a box of half-eaten candy below one of the couch cushions. How does that happen? What kind of natural-born freak are you? Did your parents not teach you to do anything? Clearly not. Total slob. It is unbelievable. Soda on the wall? That kind of slobbery. Not snobbery, that's different. That would be spilling soda on the wall while wearing a Cartier watch. That's different, see? This ain't what's happening here. So she says to me, the generation's just different. I thought about it for a minute. The generation's just different. Is it, though? Haven't we always had Pat Make a Messes in every generation? Huh? Someone who ignores expectations, lives sideways, and somehow manages to keep things moving. Cleanliness, not really a big deal. The mess changes, the age changes, but the chaos is timeless. And somewhere out there, I'm convinced, Pat is still cranking up the lawnmower at 2 a.m., headlights on, kitchen's a disaster, no dams left to give. Pat Make a Mess, you made this world a better place. Thanks for spending time with me today. My name is Bud like the beer, Ford like the truck.